Hi, I'm Val Walker, and I'm a blogger for Psychology Today and the author of three books. And my latest book is called Healing Through Wonder: How Awe Restores Us After Trauma and Loss. And Robyn Houston-Bean here was profiled in the book. You want to talk about what got you interested in awe and wonder too?
Yeah, thanks, Val. This is exciting because I think this is our first video after the book launch. So this is
That's
a,
right.
a big deal. So congratulations on that. Um, the foundation that I run is called the Sun Will Rise Foundation, and we support people bereaved due to substance use related causes. There's lots of trauma, right, with this population of people, and I think, I was thinking the other day when I knew we were videoing again, I was thinking, right at that very beginning, right, when I found Nick's recovery notebook and it said, "Please be happy, the sun will rise." That stopped me in my tracks right there at that moment, right? I didn't even realize I was having a moment of awe and wonder. But when I think about it now, how profound is it that I found that?
Yeah.
That gave me the message to go on, right? Mom, you could do this, right? I was very, very early on. Of course, I went into deep, deep sadness and traumatic moments after that, and other things helped pull me out, like my dragonfly. But um, that is a really profound thing that happened right at that moment. And when I tell people the story, or they read it on the website about this is Nick's words, "Please be happy, the sun will rise." And then this whole organization was born from those thoughts.
Mm.
It takes a lot of people's breath away, and I have the tattoo of it on my arm, that I can look at. I can see his handwriting right there. And it's very powerful. And along the way, so many things have happened to me that have pushed me forward, stopped the ruminating, like you said, becoming less isolated because of these things, awe and wonder repeatedly. And I bring that to the people that I serve by these groups, and those people sharing their stories help me more by bringing their own stories as well. So thanks for being here. I'm really excited. Um, to have another guest on with us, and I'm excited to hear tonight.
And our guest is Les Schaffer. And I have known Les, I'm really saying for many decades,
Many.
being absolutely thrilled to have Les here with us. I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and I met Les back when I used to live there. And Les was even a clinical supervisor of mine when I was studying rehabilitation counseling in graduate school. Les helped me and guided me with that. And after many years of being a psychotherapist, Les became a professional storyteller. And Les has always been a kind of guiding big brother kind of person for me in my life. And I'm so grateful that you wanted to come and join us tonight, Les. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, you just did. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm Les Schaffer.
No. That was the
Now,
pre-introduction.
and I'm the Schaffers that spell their name Schaffer, and it can get really confusing. And I'm right now looking at Robin's name and realizing that one of my wife's nieces is married to a bean,
Oh,
and they're expecting their first two little beans in about 5 weeks. Out in the hinterlands of central Missouri. So
wow.
There's a
apparently,
lot of
lots of
beans around.
beans,
There are a lot of beans.
uh, which is my long way of kind of saying. I think one of my core beliefs is that we're all connected, and we live in a society that works so hard to break connections. Uh, Corporate society, the autocratic society, the class and race-based societies, they don't coexist. They don't like coexisting with connection. So folks like storytellers and counselors and almost any kind of artist, whatever the artwork, whatever the media is, are what we really are. We're connectors. we like those little, you plug in one cord on one end and another cord, and the current flows through. And it's a sacred, I think it's a sacred job.
Yeah.
You introduced me as I think you said I became a storyteller.
Well, you always were actually, you did
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
storytelling
yeah,
in your counseling
yeah,
groups.
yeah. And I heard,
The perfect segue to say, okay, we have this channel here specifically to share stories about moments of awe and wonder. And I like to say, and Robin likes to say, something that took your breath away, that stopped you right in your tracks, something that changed your perspective and may have lasted for a whole lifetime after that. It could have just been something that got
uh,
you through a tough day or a tough week. But these experiences are very transformative and it opens us up to learning and seeing the world in a new way. And especially, it gets us out of our head and takes us into the present moment, these kinds of moments. So, Les, I know you have a couple of stories.
what an intro. That's a lot to live up to.
Oh, you've
But
got
yeah,
it. You've got it.
I want to let me do I don't even know if this is a story. It's been a long time percolating. I first started working on it probably the year before I met you. So it was a long time ago. And it's a story, I guess, maybe the last story I'll work on in my last moments. I may go back to it. Um, and it changed my life. So let me start with my dad. For my first 18 years, well, actually, it was longer than that, but for the first years of my life, I had a very angry, prickly relationship with a very difficult man. Uh, and it wasn't made any easier when he came back from World War II and had PTSD, what they now would describe as PTSD, and it was pretty awful. I didn't know this until I was 18 years old, but for the first 18 years of my life, my dad lied to me about something important. He not only lied to me, he bullied and terrorized and God knows what, but he got our whole big extended family to go along with it. I once counted up the people that knew we were all living this lie, and it was probably well over 200 people. No tell, I mean, big four, families are big, and ours was could be sprawling. He let me believe that the woman I thought was my mother, or he, or the woman I thought was my mother was not really my mother. Turned out she was my stepmother. And he told me this when I was 18. I was flunking out of college. Shouldn't have been there in the first place. I'd been a mess as a kid. I was a mess as a teenager, and I was a mess in college. And I knew I was going to get kicked out. And he thought if he told me the truth about my mother, I would straighten out and do it for my stepmother. His logic. The way my dad communicated with me in those days usually was in the middle of the night. He was never home, which is another story, usually until 2, 3 in the morning. I know now sometimes he came home drunk, often probably drunk. And that's when if he had anything to say to me, he'd wake me up and I would hear it. Um, he didn't treat I have had a half sister and half brother. They got treated differently, but that's how we communicate. So he wakes me up like 3 o'clock one morning. My stepmother has let him know we had a letter from the college, da 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 da, and he tells me the story. that my birth mother had died a few weeks after I was born. She never really recovered from my birth. Uh, she died with some sort of an infection, and it was in pain and not pretty. And then my birth mother died in middle of March, 1937, and my dad had remarried by May, married his old girlfriend, who, when I went to live with them, pretended she was my mother. And she raised me. She did a good job. She was not a nurturing woman by any means, but I survived and got some good skills from her. Um, I did know the whole time growing up that something was wrong and that I was different. And I grew up feeling different in just about every way you could. Not the least of which is I look different from everybody else in the family. Uh, we had very little contact with my birth mother. And as time went on, my dad cut all of that off. His mother, for a little while, would sneak me to visit them. And then I would have to swear on a stack of Bibles not to tell my folks when I got home where we'd been. And if my birth mother's family gave me any gifts or anything, I had to leave them at my grandmother's apartment. Um, my dad tells me all of this and finishes up with, you gotta change your life because of your stepmother, but don't tell her I told you, which is how dysfunctional families work. And I think in some befuddled way, he thought I would pull myself together, which I kind of did. I got I got kicked out of school. I got a job in Manhattan. I started building up some sort of a life. I held the secret from my stepmother for maybe 6 months. And then, of course, she and we had this wonderful fight, taking laundry out of it, doing our laundry together, which was one of the few things we did together. And I don't remember what the fight was about. 18 years of resentment and anger and grief and just exploded all over her,
Mhm.
probably unfairly,
Mhm.
but it exploded. Before that afternoon was over, I packed up a few belongings into two grocery bags and left home. And as I was walking, I had to walk like 2 blocks to the bus stop to get a bus to go anywhere. And my kid sister, who's 5 years younger than me, is trailing along behind me, hysterical, and begging me to take her with me. And I
Oh
didn't
gosh.
find out until years and years later why she wanted me to take her with me. Just yet another story. That day when I left, I had no idea where I was going. I had just left, and I ended up staying with a friend. By the end of the week, I had my first apartment in Manhattan, a little brownstone studio. The building's still there. $125 a month rent when I was making $45 a week at my job, and the living was not easy. But I did. I only saw my parents fitfully for maybe the next 20 or so years. When I ended up having children, my stepmother in particular was awful to my grandchildren, or my children, her grandchildren, and we had to break off contact. One of the things I wanted was to know where my mother's grave was, and nobody would tell me. And my father would, in fact, lie about it. He would make up stuff and tell me, and I would go chasing after these rabbits,
Mm.
and I didn't know. It was a real hot coal in our lives, and I think it kept us at tenterhooks. It was as if I was living in my own Groundhog Day without the happy ending. So I think for my sake and the sake of my children, my life, I had to do something about it. And I tried all sorts of things, talking to him, trying to go through my grandmother. Everybody kept the secret and wouldn't tell me. But I was determined. This is now maybe 30 years since I'd left home, and I needed to know. And I was doing some meditation then. And one day I was doing a meditation about, of all things, Hiroshima. My
Mm,
dad had been one of the first American forces in Hiroshima after the
wow.
bomb. And a Japanese story about the city had caught my ear and eye, and I did this meditation on it one day. And it became a really deep meditation. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't about Hiroshima anymore. And I started visualizing this big, glowing, setting sun. And I was with my father. We were at the edge of a stream. Behind our backs in the distance, we could see the Manhattan skyline. Across the stream from us was some woods and this huge setting sun. In my meditation or wake dream, whatever it was, my dad was older, he was feeble, he had trouble walking, all of which happened to him, and he was complaining at every step. And then I was dragging him across the stream and into a cemetery that lay beyond it. And we got across, and I pulled him up an embankment, and with my last strength, dragged him and myself into the cemetery, and we began searching amongst all these weed encrusted graves for my mother's tombstone. And I was screaming at him. I started screaming at him. Do you ever think about her? Do you ever cry for her? Do you ever call out her name? Do you ever ask, Frances, are you resting in peace? Do you ever tell her you loved her? Do you let her know that you denied her existence to her child's children? My dad in my meditation was as he was, overweight, his feet were hurting, but he kept with me and we struggled to keep up the search. And dead weeds and vines and things that caught your hands and all were everywhere. And I realized that these weeds and vines and shrubbery, they were sheltering the forgotten ones. They were really a shelter. And they were not going to give up their secrets easily. And behind us, in one end, was the sun gone down even more. And then behind us on the other end is now the graying city. And we were both now crying. And then my dad seemed to know where we were heading. He stopped in front of a rusted fence by a teetering old gravestone, overgrown with weeds and thorny vines. And I knelt there and tore them away, tearing the vines away and the prickly stuff. My hands were bleeding from it. And then I could read her name carved in this up, Frances Milgram Schaefer. And carved below in large letters was a single word. I don't know if I can get through this. Mother, all caps. We sat there for a long time, both of us exhausted. And then eventually we returned to the stream where I washed and dried my father's feet, which, even though it was a meditation or a dream, was the second most healing thing I'd ever done with him.
Mm.
Uh, and then we silently walked back toward the city skyline. The next time I was in New York, I told my father to dream. And finally, he said, she's buried in Riverside Cemetery in Lodi, New Jersey.
Mm.
Short time after that, my daughter and I went to the cemetery, which was bordered by a slow flowing stream. You could see the New York skyline off in the distance. A lot of the old graves covered with weeds and overgrown grasses. We found a fenced-in old iron fence that fenced in a section. That was my mother's family, the Milgram family. They had a foundation that had that. But my mother wasn't in there. I still don't know the reason why she wasn't. Her tombstone was outside that, just as I'd visualized, covered with weeds. It was leaning. My daughter and I, with bare hands, we pulled all the stuff away. Um, New York City is just glowing in the late afternoon,
Wow.
sunset. And finally, we cleared the stone and we could write it because it was leaning and we could read it. Francis Milgram Schaefer died March 22nd, 1937, age 21 years. And then it says, Dear daughter and beloved, and in big words, mother.
Mm. Gosh.
Well, over the remaining years, my dad and I reconciled and
Mm.
came to a really good place. And he came down when Kathy and I got married and was just made a wonderful speech at the wedding. Um, Publicly blessed me
Mm.
at the wedding.
Wow.
And about almost 10 years to the day later, I held his rigid body as the tubes were removed. The machines were turned off and the tubes were removed, and I could feel his body just relaxing as I held him,
Mm.
just relaxed.
Yeah.
We say the Jews say the Kaddish, which is the prayer for the dead. It never mentions death at all, but this is the prayer we say. We say it on the anniversary of the death of a loved one. He who creates peace in his celestial heights, may he create peace for us and for all Israel. Can I hear an amen?
Les, that's phenomenal. The vision you had, that's something with that. Boy, my goodness. That is quite miraculous I, in my humble opinion.
For me, being where I was and who I was at that time, it would have been so easy to brush it off.
Yeah.
There's a footnote to this. 2 weeks ago, for my birthday, we went up to New York City for what turned out to be a less than 48-hour trip because of the coming snowstorm. But I met with two cousins of mine I hadn't seen in over 80 years. And we spent the afternoon together. Um, they were one of my grandmother's sister's grandchildren, and just a few years younger than me. One of them, Bob Tonti, had a gift for me, and he had found my mother's real death certificate.
Mm.
My family faked my birth certificate. I
Oh,
went I went through life with a fake birth certificate for a long time. And the only death certificate I ever saw was blank. It had her name on it. But they gave me a copy. He got me a copy of the original death certificate. Uh, and there's one other little thing too. A few years ago, I started getting envelopes in the mail, no return address or anything, but with pictures of my mother's grave. Somebody in her family is visiting that grave.
mm.
Um,
You gave me goosebumps as you're taking me down that road with you. The fact that happened, we just can't explain it, right? You can't explain these things. You just can't say, oh, that happened because, right? There's no
Yes, I can
reasonable
explain it.
explanation of why
There
that
is an
happened.
explanation.
There is, you have one.
For me to continue living, I needed that to happen.
Okay,
I
there you
needed
go.
something to happen to
Right,
get my attention and hold it and to
right.
let me really feel
You had to get there.
presence. And I had to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Something had to get me there.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
There's room for awe and wonder. There's room for a degree of spirituality. There's room for connectedness to nature. And there's room, you can bleep this out, for all the fuck ups. And Lord knows I've had them.
Learn to
And
see.
there's just as much awe me sitting here at my desk as there is when I'm in some beautiful natural place or in some big cathedral or something. Because it's the awe is my attitude that I'm willing to look, and I think my recovery program helps with this. It's to look for the parts that are bigger than I am.
Anything that took your breath away recently, this week, recently, last week? Anybody got a recent little breathtaking thing? Robin,
Well, we have a new baby at our house, right? So
right?
that's wonderful. And he's at the age where now you can look at that baby and he giggles at you.
Oh boy.
And there's nothing that just seems more wondrous than that when they just look at you and they light up,
Right.
it just is a beautiful moment. I'll add that part. But I do want to go back to one thing that Les said. What you were when you were talking about, it was like to me, as you're telling your story, like I labeled it like the search for mother. Like I put a spin on it because I have a story in my head
Yeah,
about a personal thing related to family and not knowing and things like that. And that beautiful story that you took me through, like it opened me up to a different path. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like an opening that I had. So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to look at something a little bit
yeah,
different right now.
yeah,
And if I hadn't had the chance to sit here and listen to that, I don't think I would look at something the same way.
yeah,
So I appreciate you for doing that. And that's part of our R and Wonder, right? Opening up to other possibilities.
Well, somebody's story opens up something in you and you see it's amazing. And it's through
hmm
stories, Les.
Yeah.
hmm yeah.
So Robbins claims to be a wonder chaser.
Hmm.
Other neuroscientists have given it other names, wonder seeker, wonder prone. But let's hear it for always being open to a new experience of wonder.
I might have a story for Robin. I don't want to get lost. Yeah, have you heard the story of the perfect heart?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's a very short story. It's a it's a gift. Um, this young person goes out to the marketplace one day, um, and the things you do in the market. You stop at this stall, you stop at this one, you talk to this person, sip a cup of coffee, a little bit of coffee here, and this person senses a commotion, and sure enough, toward the center of the marketplace, there is a group of people, and they're agitated, and it's a commotion. And so our person walks over there, and in the middle of this group of people is a beautiful, beautiful young man, tall, good looking, smooth, and the way young men are fresh for maybe a moment, like flowers, and then they go to something else. But he has taken out his heart and he's showing it to people. And it's beautiful. It's perfect, perfectly shaped. perfect size, not a mark on it. The red you can only dream about. And he is saying, I wanted you all to see this perfect heart that I have. It is perfect. And people, oh, it's wonderful. I wish I could have one like that. Da, 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 da. And they're just they're gonna elect him mayor or something. Well, our person who's watching notices an old woman is coming through the crowd. She's kind of frail looking, but tough looking, and she's pushing her way through, and she's trying to talk, but the racket is so great, and she finally has to just shout out, "Young man, just stop where you are. What kind of foolery is this about your perfect heart? Let me see that." And he shows her the heart. She just got, "You call this perfect? There's nothing perfect about this at all. Look how smooth it is." She said, "I'll show you a perfect heart." And she reaches in and pulls out her heart. And it's lumpy and misshapen and scarred all over. And there are holes in it. And there are places where it looks like somebody had put in a piece of heart to fill a hole, but the hole is never quite filled because that's how it is with holes in a heart. And she says, this is what a perfect heart should look like. And the young man is looking at me kind of sneering, no respect. You call that piece of dreck, he spoke Yiddish, um, perfect? And she said, it is. What you don't understand is every place you see a hole is where I gave a piece of my heart to somebody else. Everywhere you see a hole plugged is where somebody gave me a piece of their heart, and we plugged it in. And the young man takes this in and takes it in, and his face changes, and tears start flowing. And the woman embraces him, and he embraces her, and they remain in this embrace for a long time. And finally, arms around each other, they walk off.
You got me. That's beautiful. It really is.
You sounds like you suffered a real major loss. A child, I'm guessing?
Yeah, my 20-year-old son, Nick. Yeah, yeah. But I bring him along wherever I go, and I'm
He's
able to
there.
share these stories with people, and
And
yeah, yeah.
you
It's
work.
like the two hearts are working together,
Mm,
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, Les. Mm.
Right. Well, I think that every time we get together with different people, it's such an entirely different experience. And isn't it amazing how stories just have a way of changing everything we thought about something and
And
walk away
sometimes
with a
everything
different
we
act?
thought about somebody.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I just think this has been a really special get together tonight, Les. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
with what a powerful story. And it
And
just was
thank you for
stunning.
sparking me to do something to do this. I mean, I did getting ready for this. I thought about all the stories I could tell. And then the thing you and I were talking about, the angels,
Yeah.
I started making a list of the angels.
Mm.
And
And
Les really believes angels come around for us
oh, well,
and
they're not, they're human being, they're human
the
beings.
human angels that come at the right
We
time.
all have angel in us. But
Mm.
I
Right.
filled up, I got like 2 pages full of name names
Oh,
of descriptions, and I'm gonna keep going with that. So thank you for that.
well,
Yeah.
we've had guests on for a second time, so maybe we could have a second
Yeah, we
time to
could
talk
talk
about
about your angel
that.
visitors of
Yes.
real humans who played angels in your life
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
they're
came
there
at the
for us.
right time.
Mhm.
Somehow they knew when we were talking about that interconnection, all connected together. We know we come together at the right
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. So thank you, everybody. Robin, I'm so glad you could be here tonight and be part of this.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm so glad to be here. I feel like, someone is going to see this that might be a trauma survivor who's like feeling numb. That happens a lot, right? And then they're going to hear this story, this episode, and this moment of awe and wonder of you sharing your story is just going to shake them up a little bit, make them feel something, and that's going to be a beautiful gift that you gave them. So
Well,
again,
thank you.
thank you.